All right, we are going to look over the recipe really quickly and then we're going to go ahead and start making it. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right, so the recipe that we're making today is the Hearty pumpkin chili. It serves about 6 people. Honestly, probably a little bit more than 6 if you had smaller servings, because these servings are pretty huge. I've already made this recipe once and it turned out amazing. So I'm really happy to be bringing this to y'all as well. Per serving, it's about 410 calories. It has 22 grams of protein, 20 grams of fat, and 35 grams of carbohydrate. And that's pretty approximate depending on exactly how much you eat. And then the ingredients are 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 1 white onion, finely chopped, 1 green pepper, 3 cloves of garlic. I put 4 today because I love garlic. And then 1 pound of ground meat, and that could either be like lean beef, like the 93.7 beef, or turkey would be fine. Today, I'm actually making this a vegetarian version, so I'm going to be using the Beyond Beef. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. I eat a lot of this because I'm a vegetarian. That it's not necessarily any more healthy than beef at all. It has a pretty decent amount of saturated fat and stuff in it. I don't eat it multiple times a day, but 1 time a day. So don't get this if you think this is going to be healthier. This is pretty comparable to, like, I think it's comparable to the 80/20 beef. So it's even has more fat than if you were to just get like the lean beef option. We're also going to be using tomato paste, chili powder, cumin, paprika, a little bit of oregano, and then the pumpkin puree is what makes this really interesting. It's not like a regular chili. It has a very distinct pumpkin flavor, which I personally really like. I'm also using low sodium pinto beans, and I ordered low sodium black beans from my HEB, but they didn't have any, so we had to just get the regular black beans. And I'll actually show you the 2 cans of the pinto versus the black to really see the difference in the sodium there. And then we're also using 1 can of diced tomatoes. I like to get these. They're open, so I'm trying to be careful. These are the fire roasted tomatoes. They just give it a really nice smoky kind of flavor. It's delicious. I prefer the fire roasted over just the normal diced tomatoes. And then, let me see. Oh, is someone wanting in? Okay, no. And then we're going to do some frozen corn, some vegetable broth. And again, my HEB, whenever I ordered it, didn't actually have any vegetable broth apparently. So we're just gonna have to use water today and maybe a tiny bit of salt to kind of give it a little bit more of a taste. And then you can top this off with avocado, sour cream, cilantro, or green onions. I have cilantro and green onions for me today. We can go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to stop sharing. Alrighty. So I have most everything prepared already because this is a pretty simple recipe. I just opened all the cans. So we have our canned pumpkin. Like I said, we have our fire roasted diced tomatoes. And then I also have, these are already opened and drained. There's no more beans in here. Let me admit this person. So this is the low sodium pinto beans that we're using today. And per serving, it has 130 milligrams of sodium in there. Sorry, I hurt my finger. But 130 milligrams of sodium per serving. And this is the low sodium. And then this is the normal sodium black beans. I wanted the low sodium, but they didn't have it. And you can see huge difference, 410 milligrams per serving. So if you were to eat this entire can, there's 3.5 servings in this 1 can. So you do 3.5 times 410. I'm not even going to try to do that math. It's really high just for this 1 can of beans. So to get rid of some of the sodium, I dumped them out into a strainer and I tried to strain through it as much as possible because some of the sodium is in actually like the juice. So if you were to dump this entire can just in it, in the chili, then it's going to be pretty salty. But I strained it out a little bit to get rid of some of that excess sodium. And then I already opened the organic tomato paste. And I have I'm just going to move y'all over here, all the beans, all the garlic. The onion is already chopped up in the skillet. So I'm gonna go ahead and start making that one. I have my olive oil here. It calls for 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I need to actually, okay, I need to actually pull up the recipe. I need to be able to see. We're gonna put 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here with these onions. I'm gonna cook the onions for a little bit before I add in the green peppers. And I bought 2 green peppers just in case I wanted to add a little bit more. Feel free to add more vegetables if you wanted to. But I'm just gonna use the one, try to stick as closely to the recipe as possible. All right, turning that on. That's gonna take a little while to cook. Let's see. And then after we heat up the onions and the olive oil, like I said, I'm gonna add in the green peppers, I'm gonna add in the garlic and the ground beef. Well, we're not using ground beef, real ground beef. And then cook for about 6 to 8 minutes. So that's gonna be cooking for just a bit. Let me see, I have a comment in here. Oh, you cooked the beans, Luce, you cooked the beans before you actually add it to the chili, or you just don't buy canned beans? Is that what you mean?
I always cook the beans.
Okay, just from like dry.
Yeah, because I am afraid of the sodium.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. I did not have time to cook pinto and black beans. You probably just could have cooked them at one time. So I bought the can, but absolutely, that's a really great way to just completely avoid the sodium. Just cook the beans yourself. Add a tiny bit of salt if you want, but you're definitely probably not going to add as much, or in this can of beans right here. And then the pumpkin is this one. We're using just the organic 100% pumpkin puree. It doesn't have to be organic, just any sort of 100% pumpkin puree. I chose this recipe specifically because it's super easy. It's literally just dumping a bunch of cans unless you actually cook the beans like Luce does. All right, I'm gonna stir this up a little bit. I'll try to move y'all over here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see if I can figure out somewhere to put you guys. I usually have a box right here, but not today. Let's do this. This is gonna be risky. I'm putting you on top of my fruit bowl. I think it works. Okay. All righty, so we're just cooking through the onions until they are translucent. I have it pretty high right now because I'm just wanting to cook it as quickly as possible so that y'all aren't just watching me cook onions. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the green pepper now because I think those are gonna take a little while. Whenever I made this recipe before today, I used frozen green pepper. You can definitely do that. It'll cook a lot more quickly. But today I'm using fresh. It already smells really amazing. Can y'all hear me okay over the sizzle of all of this? Hopefully I'm still speaking up clearly. Turn it down just a bit. Okay. I'm gonna let that cook for just a second, and then I'm gonna add in my garlic. All right. The spices that we were using today, like I mentioned, I have them all in this bowl. So I have just a tiny bit of oregano. I have the cumin underneath. I have a bunch of chili powder and the smoked paprika, which I just love to add to everything. It's so much more delicious than normal paprika to me. I highly recommend it to give, again, that kind of smoky flavor. All right, that was 4 cloves of garlic. I'm adding 1 more than the recipe called for because I love garlic. Alrighty. We're gonna let that cook for just a second. Then we're gonna add in our meat and y'all will see what that looks like. So for a serving of this, like I said, it's pretty comparable to the 80-20 ground beef. If you're going to use ground beef, I recommend that you use either the 93-7. So that's 93% protein and 7% fat. This is pretty high fat, but it's one of the only vegetarian options that's very comparable to ground beef. You could use tofu as well. I think I had a comment about using tofu on Teams. You definitely could use that. You might want to add a little bit more olive oil, so probably about another tablespoon of olive oil. And you're probably going to want to cook the tofu a lot with this stuff right here so that the onions and garlic and peppers kind of relay the flavor of these components to the tofu, because tofu by itself is pretty bland. But that's nice because you can add it to almost any recipe. You get some protein without a whole lot of flavor in there. All right, I'm gonna put in my ground beef. Alrighty. Chop that up a little bit. And then we're gonna cook this together just for a second until the onions are completely translucent. It's already smelling really amazing, and I'm very hungry. Every time I teach these cooking classes, I have a class from 8 a.m. until 11, and then I have about an hour to prepare for these cooking classes. So I don't have a ton of time to eat. I eat a tiny bit in the morning, but by the time these classes roll around, I am ready to eat. So my appetite is always there while I'm making this food. So you know you're getting a very hungry person's perspective of the meal after we're finished cooking it. The beef kind of slowed down the cooking, so I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit more. Crush it up as much as possible. After this, honestly, it's just a bunch of cans of stuff that's going in here. It's gonna take barely any time. You basically just have to wait for it to warm up. Whenever I made this recipe before, it is so much better the second day because it really gives a lot of time, or having it a day later gives it a lot of time to meld all the flavors together. Personally, I always like chilies on the second day after being reheated. And this was the same exact way. All right, my onions are looking pretty translucent here. And my beef, this beef does not need to cook as long as normal beef. You basically just kind of have to heat it up. There's not a whole lot in here that can go rancid. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add in all my other components. Let's see what it wants us to add in first. Go to the recipe real fast. All right, tomato paste, chili powder, cumin, smoked paprika. So all the spices in the tomato paste. I'm gonna dump all my spices. Then it wants about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. So I'm just gonna estimate that's about 1.5. So another half. At this point, I'm probably gonna add a little bit of water. Let me grab a bowl full of water really quickly. All right. A bowl of water. I'm gonna mix this all up, add my water to get the tomato paste evenly distributed. The recipe again calls for vegetable broth, but my HEB wasn't able to get me vegetable broth. So we're just gonna have to use water. It smells even better now with all the spices in here. I got a comment. Let me see what that says real fast. So I am using the tomato paste and adding water like it says to. I'm adding water instead of vegetable broth. But if you wanted to use tomato sauce, you absolutely can do that. Just make sure that it's not like Italian seasoned. Just plain marinara sauce would be totally fine if you wanted to do that instead. It's going to turn out pretty tomatoey and taste pretty much the exact same. Okay. Alrighty, there's my base. Now it wants me to add in the pumpkin puree, the drained beans, diced tomatoes, so everything else. Let me get my corn really quickly out of the freezer. One more person wants to be let in. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in my fire roasted diced tomatoes, my favorite kind. I'm gonna add in my entire jar of pumpkin puree. For those who weren't here in the very, very beginning, I have already made this recipe before, and I thought the pumpkin puree was a really nice addition. It adds a vegetable, it's counted as a vegetable, and it adds a really nice pumpkin-y flavor. It comes through pretty well, which I like. I love pretty much everything pumpkin, so this time of year is really fun for me. Okay, now my beans. And then for those of you also who weren't here earlier, I ordered 2 cans of low sodium beans. So I ordered low sodium pinto and low sodium black beans, but they weren't able, my HEB was not able to find a low sodium black bean option for me. So they gave me the normal one. And the sodium difference between these 2 beans is just insane. The pinto beans per serving have 130 milligrams of sodium, while the black beans have 410 milligrams of sodium per serving, which is just insane. It's so much. And Luce recommended that you can just make your beans. So if you had dry beans, wanted to make them ahead of time, you could make both the black and the pinto, not add any salt, and there you go. You're pretty low on sodium there. I'm gonna add in the corn. I don't remember how much it wanted me to add. 1 cup. I'll do about a cup. I'm gonna eyeball it. There we go. It's pretty good. So about half a bag of the 1 pound bag of corn. I got the baby white and gold. The gold, I think, is a little bit more sweet than the white corn. So I like to get both so that it's not a super sweet chili. I'm gonna get a little bit of water because right now it's looking pretty thick. And then we just leave it. I think that is it. We just leave it for about 10 minutes to cook through, just heat up all the corn and all the other components that I just now added. And then it should be ready. I'm gonna get just a little bit more water. All right, stir that up. Let's see, we have a message from Renee. Yes, are you talking about the beans? If you make sure to drain the beans, then you would be totally fine with the sodium. Drain them and rinse them. All right. That is looking pretty good. I'm going to turn the heat up to about a medium high and then leave this to cook for about 10 minutes. Again, the longer you leave it to cook, the better it's going to taste. Uh-oh, someone just entered. All righty. Okay, so I have my green onions and my cilantro here. That is for after we're finished today. I'm trying to think of anything else that we could potentially add to this recipe to make it better, especially more vegetables. I feel like we're pretty good on the vegetables because we have the fire roasted tomatoes. We have the pumpkin puree, and it's very good on protein. It has a bunch of beans. It has the beefless ground. Let's see, how would it taste? Ooh, nopalitos, yeah, that would be really good. Nopalitos kind of have a strong flavor, I feel like. They come through pretty clearly, so maybe add just a little bit. See if you don't like nopalitos, I wouldn't recommend adding them. But yes, that would be a super good vegetable option. I love nopalitos, so that'd be perfect. And the recipe is on Teams. Let me make sure I posted it. Whenever I announced the class, it should be attached. Yeah, it is attached for me. Y'all just make sure you can see it. And if you can't, for whatever reason, I can send it out to everyone again. Jalapenos would be really, really good. This chili is not very spicy at all. Basically the only spice that comes with it is the actual chili powder. So if you wanted it to be a little bit more spicy, I was actually thinking about adding chipotle chili powder. That is personally my favorite one. I love chipotle anything. And I feel like chipotle and pumpkin would go totally fine together. So you could switch up the chili powder, make it a little bit more spicy, or you could add jalapenos for sure. The green pepper that I used was just a plain bell pepper. You could use frozen. I used just this guy. I bought 2 of them. I was going to add 2 in, but I didn't. And thank you for reminding me. Bell pepper is another one of the vegetables. We only added 1, so it's not going to give you like a full serving of vegetable in your actual bowl, but it does relay a really good flavor. But like I said, you could also use frozen if you wanted to do that. Make it a little bit faster. Yes, I agree with you, Luce. Chipotle is really amazing. I love that flavor. So for right now, we're kind of just letting it sit. For anyone who arrived a little bit late, do y'all have any questions or anything that you would like me to go over again with the recipe? I followed it pretty cleanly through. The only thing I added more of was the garlic, and I also added the Beyond beef instead of the lean beef or turkey. This recipe would be really good with turkey as well. And turkey in general just has lower saturated fat than beef does, or actually turkey and the 97 or 93.7 beef are pretty comparable to each other. But if you get like an 80-20 beef and turkey, the turkey is going to win in terms of healthfulness. It's going to have that way lower saturated fat and a pretty standard, like same level of protein. But all that to say, turkey would be really good in this as well. Oh, and I didn't use the vegetable broth. I just used water instead. We are almost finished here. I'm going to, all my recipes take no time at all. Sorry about that, guys. They would take more time if y'all actually watched me open up all the cans of beans and drain them and stuff, but that's not too exciting. So I like to do that ahead of time. It's boiling. Sorry, these things get really hot. Boiling, smells really good. I bet you could add carrots to this. I don't think, maybe 2 carrots. That would be really yummy. All right, I hope y'all see that. It looks so good. Let's see what the chat says. I'm not sure. I've never actually thought about that. So she asked, if you don't have any vegetable broth on hand, can you use like the water or the juice kind of that comes from a can of mixed vegetables? I feel like you could, but then you'd have to use the vegetables later on. If you wanted to, you could use maybe a can of corn instead of the frozen corn and add in the entire can to give it kind of the juice as well. You could add in, let's see, how about green beans or something? If you wanted to do that, you could add the entire thing of green beans in there, including with the water. Oh yes, I love Better Than Bouillon. I usually buy the Better Than Chicken one. It's the vegetarian version. Those are really delicious. I love them. And there is a low sodium version of the Better Than Bouillon as well. You could just mix that. I think you mix about a teaspoon in with a cup of water. I think that's what it is, but just read the instructions. But those are really, really good. All right. Ooh, good. We have someone who's gonna cook this tonight. It really doesn't take any time at all. It took me about maybe 10 minutes to prepare everything ahead of time, and that was with me like cutting the onions and doing everything ahead of time. Obviously, I could be doing that right now, like the green onions and cilantro and stuff. But yeah, I also did a lot of dishes before this, so didn't take much time at all. Okay, stir this up one more time, and then I'm gonna go ahead and serve myself up a bowl. This is one of the recipes that I really wish that we could have done this in the classroom so that y'all would be able to try it as well, because it smells so good. Okay, I'm gonna get myself a bowl. Actually, I think I'm just gonna recycle one of these bean bowls that I used and grab a spoon really quickly. Okay. Oh, I need a serving utensil. Let me grab one. Okay. Looks really good. So this is about what I would serve myself. Maybe a little bit more if I was extra hungry. So obviously that is way more than 6 servings if you just use little like cup-sized bowls like this. But if you're more hungry, I feel like you could probably eat a serving and a half of this size. So yeah, definitely more than 6 servings here. I'm gonna put on my green onion and my cilantro. If you wanted to make it a little bit more like, I guess, Latin, you could also put in a lime. That sounds amazing. I don't have avocado, but that would also be really good. And I think it calls for sour cream as well. You could put that on top. That would make it delicious. Okay. We're gonna move over here to the table. Sorry guys, earthquake. So that y'all can see everything in the really good light. So this is what it looks like. I have my cilantro, my green onion, all the components in there. It's really hot, so I'm gonna let it cool off for just a second while I stir it before I take a bite of it. Oh, I have a big old chunk of Beyond Beef right there. Let's see what the chat says. Yes. Yeah, so any bouillon, any vegetable broth, any packaged item, I'm going to be honest with you, is pretty high in sodium. So if there is a low sodium option, definitely try that one out and see if you're fine with that level of sodium. I gave like a little, yes, I know. I feel really bad that y'all aren't able to try it. But what I was saying is I gave a little talk yesterday, or a little presentation about healthy eating, and sodium was one of those things that I recommended, and most people recommended, like from the dietary guidelines and all of the dietitians, etc. Don't go too high on the sodium, because it does just have health implications in the long run. Okay, sorry guys, you can't really try it out with me. All right, I'm gonna get this bite right here. It has a tomato, has a pretty good chunk of Beyond Beef. Just blow it off a little bit. It's really good. I'm not even sure you would need the vegetable broth. It's very salty as it is. It's probably the beans that I used. It is not super duper pumpkin-y. It does come through a little bit. You can just tell that there's something different about this chili. I mean, there's a lot of things different than normal chili, but the pumpkin is the one kind of giving it that really different flavor. It also makes it a little bit more creamy than chili normally is, because it's just that thick pureed consistency. Let's see. Bye, Luce. Okay. Alrighty. Well, do y'all have any questions? Any comments? Anything else that you would change or add, or even recipes that you would like to see for December? because I'm having to come up with the December recipes really soon. And if y'all want me to, or if you want to see me make anything specifically, you can shoot me a message or you could contact me on Teams. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming in today. I will be doing another one of these on December 4th. I don't have the recipes yet, so let me know if you have any recommendations. And y'all have a very happy Thanksgiving next week. Bye.